Regular Show. One of my favorite childhood TV shows. I mean, you guys know the feeling. You come home from school, sit back on your couch just to relax a little bit, turn on your TV, grab your Capri Sun and your cookies, you sit down and you watch some nice old Regular Show. And then you pass out waking up in your bed somehow. But man, Regular Show was just such a good TV show. So much so to the point that I'm literally debating whether or not to watch it again. But in this video, we will be covering the Regular Show Iceberg. Keep in mind, this is gonna be a long one, so it may be split into multiple parts, just letting you guys know in advance. But without further ado, you know I hate to keep you guys waiting. Let's do this. The park. The park is the main location in Regular Show, and it's constantly being attacked throughout the show. And you guys are actually gonna learn a secret about the park later on in this video, but that's as in-depth as I'll go in this. Regular Show movie. Did you know that Regular Show actually had a movie in 2015? It was produced by Cartoon Network Studios, and the film was directed by J.G. Quintel himself. And the entire plot of the movie is about the future. Rigby, Benson, Skips, High Five Ghost, Muscle Man, and Pops fight Mr. Ross, who is a madman plotting to erase all of time. But this one's pretty interesting because not a lot of people know that there's a Regular Show movie. Thomas. Thomas is a major reoccurring character in Regular Show. In his debut in Season 4's premiere, Exit 9B, he's hired as an intern for the park and quickly becomes part of the main cast of characters for the next 2 seasons. And yeah, this did happen pretty quickly. I actually remember when they implemented Thomas and stuff just changed about the show really rapidly. And it's funny too because something seemed off about the guy, which I'll get into later on. J.G. Quintel. J.G. Quintel is an American animator, voice actor, director, writer, producer, and storyboard artist. He's actually mostly known as the creator of the Cartoon Network series Regular Show, in which he voiced Mordecai as well as High Five Ghost. And man, let me tell you, does he know how to make a good story. Regular Show fanfiction. Oh boy, I think you guys know where this is going. But much like any other show, Regular Show does have its fair share of fanfiction. And I mean, a good majority of them are pretty tame, but there's some that are kind of weird. But some of them can actually make for some pretty good stories. So there's that. Mr. Maylard. So Mr. Maylard was the park owner until the series finale. He's Benson's boss and the adoptive father of Pops. He also had an office on the 3rd story of the house where he's sometimes seen. And it's been said he was born sometime in the early 1700s, which, damn, this guy's old. And it's said during his younger years, he actually worked as a meteor fragment salesman, and during one of his expeditions, he found an asteroid containing a baby from Lollyland. And so, Mr. Maylard adopted the baby and named him Pops. 80s inspiration. So the show often references a lot of 1980s culture, using music and electronic devices from that era because many factors from the decade left a positive influence on Quintel. Here's a quote from J.G. Quintel in which he says, "From the beginning, I really wanted to infuse an 80s vibe, says, because I grew up in the 80s and I remember so many things about that era that were cool." This explains a lot of the outfits as well as the games, particularly in the arcade throughout the show. It just makes sense. And I think it ultimately fits well with the show and its characters. My mom! Do you know who else makes jokes like this? None other than Muscle Man himself. And my mom is essentially just a goofy joke from Muscle Man, and it's more of an inside joke between the park and its staff. And throughout the show, you basically just hear him say, "Do you know who else?" etc, etc, etc. My mom. So, I mean, it was pretty funny as a child. Still haunts me to this day. Billy Mitchell. Garrett Bobby Ferguson, otherwise known as Giant Bearded Face or Giant Beardo Face, is one of the antagonists in Regular Show, and he made his debut in Season 2 in the episode High Score. And he's essentially a parody of the world-renowned video game high score champion, Billy Mitchell, who currently holds the record for playing a perfect game of Pac-Man. And fun fact about Billy Mitchell, he actually ended up suing Cartoon Network in 2015 after Regular Show featured this character who cheated at video games. Mordecai's love arc. So throughout the show, you know that Mordecai has a ton of love interests, most notably Margaret. So Margaret Smith, as she's known, is a female Robin who formerly worked as a waitress at the coffee shop across the street from the park. And Mordecai would often make excuses to see her while she was at work. And Margaret and Mordecai had a good friendship at the time, although Mordecai had developed clear romantic feelings for her, and Margaret's feelings were only hinted at in earlier seasons. Then we have CJ, or Cloudy J, who is another recurring character on Regular Show. She made her first debut on season 3 episode Yes Dude Yes, and she also had another role in seasons 5 and 6 as Mordecai's second known girlfriend, until a love triangle between him and his ex-girlfriend, Margaret, occurred to them, which led them to inevitably breaking up due to Mordecai being a complete L. Like, the dude was just so indecisive, man. She had a kind, laid-back, and cool personality, and she enjoyed a lot of the same things as Mordecai. But in Mordecai nature, he fumbled. And then we have Steph, which is Mordecai's wife, and his 9th known love interest. She's a purple bat, and she makes her first appearance in the finale. You see her during a montage that takes place over the next 25 years. And they're both artists, and they meet each other while running into each other at an art gallery while their work was on display. So then, Mordecai later dates and marries Steph, and they have 3 children together. And in the end, Steph is seen socializing with Eileen in the finale, indicating that she possibly befriends the whole park. Close Enough. Close Enough is an American animated sitcom created by J.G. Quintel. It's about a couple in their early 30s, Josh and Emily, with their younger daughter Candace, who live in a Los Angeles duplex with their divorced friends Alex and Bridget. And they get into what seem like normal domestic crises, which tend to escalate into surreal, often science fiction-esque ways. So it's basically like Regular Show, but with humans. And I haven't watched it as of yet, but it looks pretty interesting. Unaired pilot. So the pilot episode for Regular Show that aired once had to deal with Mordecai and Rigby basically playing rock, paper, scissors to see who gets the chair that Pops and Benson are throwing away. But they are always getting ties. 2 a.m. in the p.m. So, 2 a.m. in the p.m. is a student film by J.G. Quintel. It involves 2 clerks who are working on Halloween night at an a.m. p.m., in which Quintel offers Marin a piece of candy, which, unbeknownst to him, contains acid, after Quintel mistakenly tells him the candy is laced with marijuana. And then the 2 proceed to hallucinate some pretty weird stuff. And this is really the origin designs for the character of Mordecai and Benson from Regular Show. However, I mean, it's not really safe for a kids' TV show, so I guess it kind of is the original pilot, but at the same time, not really. Crash Pit. The Crash Pit is a large pit in the ground at the park. Many years ago, before the events of Regular Show, the Crash Pit was originally Eagle Rock's landmark. It is where the finish line located in a drag race between Muscle Man and High Five Ghost was. However, there was an accident that caused them to crash their vehicles into the rock, creating a huge explosion that formed what is now known today as the Crash Pit. In summary, kaboom, hole, crash pit, boom. Futureselves. So this one's actually pretty cool. Future Mordecai and Future Rigby are Mordecai and Rigby's future counterparts that were introduced in Mordecai and the Rigbys. They're basically just like rock stars. So in the future, they are successful musicians and have all the things that they ever wanted. For instance, Rigby had a tattoo of a shark on his armpit, and it was also implied that future Mordecai got together with Margaret. And it was pretty funny because they also pretended to have British accents, even though Mordecai and Rigby's original accents were American. And they rarely took their sunglasses off because their future was quote-unquote so bright. Man, I love this show. Exit 9B. Exit 9B is the first episode in season 4 of Regular Show. And here's the summary of what happened. So, 2 months after the park is destroyed, Mordecai and Rigby must bring back the brainwashed workers, excluding the newly hired Thomas, back to their old selves to prevent a highway from being built over the park. But the importance of this episode is that actually the new intern Thomas made a surprise appearance. And do any of you guys relate to this too? I remember when Thomas was first introduced, I just felt like kind of off about him. He just gave like a weird sort of vibe. It's difficult to really discuss in further detail. But it was something about the character itself. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Don. Don's actually one of my favorite characters in the entire show. So Don is Rigby's younger brother in Regular Show. And despite being taller and classified as the older brother in his former friendship group, He makes his first appearance in Season 1, Episode Dawn, and is voiced by Julian Dean. Appearance-wise, he looks exactly like Rigby, and he's taller than all the other members of the park, and he has more of a muscular build. Basically, if Rigby hit the gym, this is how he'd look. And personality-wise, he was pretty friendly, and he was shown to be affectionate to Rigby, like he likes to give people sugar, which is just what he calls hugs. Despite all the generous acts he did, Rigby still despised him. But nevertheless, Dawn comes in clutch in a later episode titled Jim Blonsky, when he lets Rigby borrow his car. The Naive Man from Lollyland. The Naive Man from Lollyland is a student short that was created by J.J. Quintel. And here's the plot of it. It starts out with the naive man from Lollyland at a restaurant reading the newspaper, with him on the front saying, "Ambassador from Lollyland visits the United States for the first time." A waiter comes up and says he'll be back in a second, and the Lollyman starts organizing the bill with Lollyland currency. He then gives his waiter his money, and when the waiter looks at lollipops, he gets mad at the Lollyman. The Lollyman then starts to argue with the waiter and manager, saying that it's more than enough. And then he tries to leave, but walks into the chef, who says he's not finished talking to you yet. So he gets pushed down and is told to pay up. But the Lollyman gets an idea. He goes to get his billfold and whacks the waiter on the head with a chair. After being beaten by the manager and the chef, he then crawls out the restaurant, gets into a taxi, and tells his driver Benson, surprise appearance, to drive him away from this horrid place. Then the taxi flies away into the sky with the Lollyman saying, "Goodbye, United States. I hope one day we can become friends," ending the film. Man, J.G. Quintel is just such a creative writer. This is like, it's man. Rival Park. East Pines is a minor location in regular show, and it was a rival park managed by Gene and is also the park's main competition. The employees of East Pines dress in a green park ranger uniform, and they go through some sort of disciplined training. It's almost reminiscent of military training, and basically the entire park is like a military base. And yes, this is Gene. He's just a vending machine. And basically the two parks had a prank war. And there was actually an online game that was largely based around this episode. It's called The Great Prank War. Death. Death made his first debut in the Season 2 episode Over the Top. Death is obviously, Death. He's the Grim Reaper himself, ruthless and sadistic. He shows pleasure in collecting souls and enjoys seeing others in pain. For instance, a perfect example of this is when he laughed at Skips for struggling for his life while arm wrestling him. He also has a pretty short temper. For instance, when he threw the soul ball at Rigby instead of just handing it to him after he won it. Despite this, Death has many honorable qualities. He always keeps his end of a deal and even gives praise to those he respects. I mean, he complimented Mordecai and Rigby as the best babysitters he's ever had. And he also deeply loves and cares for his wife and son. Gary. Gary is the messenger for the Guardians of Eternal Youth and king of the planet Synthos. Here's how his story goes. So 200 years ago, Gary was the king of his planet Synthos, but he decided to leave to travel to the galaxy before returning, keeping his synthesizer in Skip's garage while he did this. His half-brother David took over the throne in his absence and made everything strict, from banning challenging music like Discord music. When Gary returned to Synthos with the accidental help of Mordecai and Rigby, he challenged David and defeated him in a music battle. However, he then announced to the Synthesins that from now on, Synthos will have no ruler, and everyone should let music be their guide. And Gary makes his first appearance in the episode Free Cake, which he appears to condemn Skips to the death after he didn't complete the ritual of youth dance. Baby Ducks. Baby Ducks is one of my favorite episodes of all time. And it debuted in Season 2 on the episode titled A Bunch of Baby Ducks. So Mordecai and Rigby find a couple baby ducks. And at first, they wanted to get rid of them, but then they later on decided to keep them. And basically, Mordecai and Rigby take them to a pet store. After that, they karate chop a dog. The baby ducks themselves karate chop a dog. And Benson then arrives and tells them he wants them to finish cleaning the fountain that they originally were cleaning, and tells them to find someone else to take the baby ducks. And then Mordecai and Rigby come across a duck-obsessed man who wants them, but they refuse and leave the ducks swimming in the pool. The baby duck's mother calls and wants to see them, but the ducks were kidnapped by the duck collector. So after that, Mordecai and Rigby pursue the truck and they crash into the park fountain, and as a result, the ducks escape. Really bad summary of the plot, but that basically sums up like their origin story, I guess you could say. They also later appear in Exit 9B to fight Giant Susan, in which they come back as the Hyper Duck, and they just look like a giant duck transformer. It's sick. Terrible toys. This just refers to how regular show made some absolutely horrifying toys. I mean, just look at Rigby right here, dude. Like, he looks cursed, man. I'm not too sure why they couldn't just make normal looking toys. I mean, they just look uncanny. Like, as I keep scrolling down looking at them, they just get worse and worse. I don't know what it is. Mordecai is a normal voice. Now, this just refers to how Mordecai's voice is the only normal voice voiced by J.G. Quintel himself. Because J.G. Quintel has sort of an effect when he speaks for High Five Ghost, but Mordecai's voice is literally just how J.G. Quintel speaks. I mean, if you see any interview with him, it's just Mordecai, so pretty cool. High school arc. So Rigby feels he isn't smart enough to be with Eileen, so he goes back to high school to graduate and gets his diploma. But he doesn't want Eileen to find out, so he ends up canceling their dates, which makes Eileen suspicious, and this takes place throughout a good chunk of season 7. It's literally just his high school arc. He's just trying to get his diploma. And then at the end, Rigby's high school graduation took place on the same day as Eileen's college graduation. So good on him. And unfortunately, I have to wrap it up at this point of the video for now. This is only part 1 of the iceberg, so don't sweat it, guys. I will be releasing part 2 around sometime next week. However, with that being said, I hope you guys did enjoy this first initial parts of the regular show iceberg. Please guys, I noticed that a lot of you guys aren't subscribed when you watch my videos. So if this video was interesting to you and you made it to this part of the video, please feel free to hit the subscribe button as well as the bell, because it keeps you guys notified when I post a video. So with that being said, guys, that's all I gotta say. Leave a like, comment if you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy.